So a few days ago, I asked you guys to send me your fake Bulls trades, realistic trades that is, although I did get plenty of wild trades that would never happen. Like, yes, just because they're successful in the trade machine doesn't mean the team that you're trading for wouldn't instantly laugh at you and hang up the phone. But I did get some good ones, a lot of good ones in fact, and while I won't be able to go through all of the trades you guys submitted, I'll try and go through as many of these as possible and my reaction to them. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. By the way, I know a few have been asking about draft prospect videos, given we're at that time of the year where the draft is now less than 2 months away. The draft lottery is a couple weeks away. Historically, I've always waited until the draft lottery before doing any prospect videos and potential prospects for the Bulls, as I like to see how the draft order shapes out before making any conclusions on who the Bulls will aim to look at. Yes, it's more likely than not that the Bulls will be drafting 12th. A very small chance they could fall to 13th or 14th if the Kings or Hawks jump them in the lottery. But then, of course, there's also the chance that they could move up into the top 4, an 8% chance, in fact. And if the Bulls do somehow get lucky and move into the top 4, that of course completely changes the type of prospects that they'll be looking at. So yes, I will have a draft prospects video out, but it'll come after the draft lottery so we know for sure where they'll be drafting. Now, as far as your guys' fake trades, I'm going to start with this one, where the Bulls are going to be sending Patrick Williams, Lonzo Ball, Dalen Terry, 2 first-round picks in 2027 and 2030, as well as a second-round pick for this year, all of that in exchange for the Miami Heat's Bam Adebayo. It's going to be an interesting offseason for the Miami Heat. Yeah, they had a nice run in the play-in to become the first 10 seed to make it to the playoffs, but they also got obliterated by the Cavs in that first round. And if you're the Heat, you have to be asking yourself if it's time to trade away your most valuable assets while they're still in their prime and start over now that Jimmy Butler is no longer with the team. But honestly, I feel like knowing the Heat, knowing their history, knowing Pat Riley, they don't take steps back. They rarely go the tanking route. So I really don't see them selling off on Bam or Tyler Hero. That said, let's say that they do. I don't know if it makes sense for the Bulls to give up that much for Bam Adebayo. Bam actually would fit well with what the Bulls need, a rim-running, lob threat, strong interior defensive big, the opposite of Nikola Vucevic, but Bam has a lot of money left on his contract. You're giving up 2 first-round picks in this scenario where the Bulls just finally gained access back to all their first-round picks. I think it's an interesting trade. I'm not saying I don't like it, but after what the Bulls went through and overpaying for Zach LaVine and being held captive under the new restrictive CBA environment, yeah, I'm not as concerned about the players the Bulls would be moving. You know, I'm kind of out on Patrick Williams at this point, and it might be good to actually get out of his contract anyway. Obviously, I like Lonzo Ball. I think he can still be a valuable piece for this young team as a mentor, but with the injuries, that's not going to be a viable piece for them long term. And then Dalen Terry is whatever. Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm more concerned about the picks and Bam's contract. I think if it was just one pick and there was a protection on that pick, say top 5 protected, then I would be more open to this trade. Next, we've got this one. Ooh, someone knows me well here. They know I love Daniel Gafford back when the Bulls had him in 2021, and I was devastated when they traded him at that deadline. I mean, here's the thing. Like I always say in any trade, you also have to ask yourself what the other team is getting out of this. What's the benefit on their side? Because Daniel Gafford in a vacuum is a better player than both Jalen Smith and Dalen Terry. Yeah, the Mavs are kind of in this weird place right now where they have to assess what the long-term viability of having Gafford on their roster is while they have Derek Lively, and now they traded for Anthony Davis as well. So yes, I could see them trading Gafford either this offseason or at some point during the season next year. But what's the value they're getting in this deal by taking on Jalen Smith and Dalen Terry? I mean, I guess you're getting some salary relief in that you could decline the team option of Dalen Terry and waive him, and then you're just taking on a smaller contract in Jalen Smith. Smith is a little younger, but yeah, I don't see the incentive here for the Mavs. I obviously like it for the Bulls because, again, like Bam, another strong lob threat, a rim protector, offensive rebounder, something the Bulls need. Which, by the way, in both these trade scenarios for Bam and Gafford, you would have to assume Vooch is gone in either of those instances. Speaking of Vooch being gone, there is also this one, which I talked about in my last video, the potential Bulls' big splashes. Vooch for Kuminga. I mean, here's the thing. If the Warriors blow a 3-1 lead to the Rockets and get bounced in the first round, they're going to need to do something. And that something is getting a serviceable big man. I think Kuminga's future with the Warriors, that writing is on the wall. He can't even crack the rotation in the playoffs. Kuminga wanted $30 million a year this past offseason. He's not going to get that anymore. Kuminga is a restricted free agent, so the Warriors can match any offer he gets. So yeah, there is a world where the Bulls could offer him something close in the Patrick Williams range, which would enable the Bulls to match salaries with Vucevic in a sign-and-trade deal. I actually wouldn't mind this trade at all if it only means you're giving up Nikola Vucevic. Vucevic is on an expiring deal. He's not part of the Bulls' long-term plans. And if you can get a younger player like Kuminga, who is a flawed player, a player I don't think is going to be a star, but still a very talented player who showed a lot of promise last season and could be a nice piece for the Bulls for their overall youth movement. This next trade involves sending Zach LaVine's expiring contract and a 2030 first-round pick, top 5 protected, to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. I don't know why, but for some reason I thought Cam Johnson was making way more than he is. That was always a reason why I wasn't too high on the Bulls trying to pursue him in a trade. That said, I'm not really for the Bulls giving up a lightly protected first-round pick for Cam Johnson. Like, yes, he would be a nice addition, but it's not an addition that is really going to move the needle for you. And people forget Cam Johnson is actually older than you would think because he was drafted in the same class as Kobe White, but Cam Johnson is 29 years old already. He was a 5-year college player and started in the league when he was 23, unlike Kobe, who was 19. So yeah, I'm not really down for this trade. I'd rather hang on to any first-round picks that you have for bigger names, or just keep the picks and draft those players. Next up, we've got this one. The Bulls send the expiring contract of Kevin Huerter to the Magic for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and a 2026 first-round pick, which is subject to a pick swap by either the Suns or the Wizards. I mean, I'm sure the Magic would take this because they would love to get out of that horrendous KCP contract they gave him, and given all the other salary requirements with Wagner's max deal kicking in next season, Suggs' deal kicking in next season as well, they're also going to have to pay Paolo Banchero. So taking on an expiring contract but also adding a shooter, which is something they so desperately needed, is not a bad trade for them. I mean, KCP wouldn't fit the Bulls' timeline, but maybe in a better offensive system than he has been in Orlando, maybe he thrives as an off-ball shooter. And if you're getting a first-round pick by taking on his contract, it's not that bad. That said, the first-round pick probably isn't going to be that valuable. It's most likely a mid-first rounder with where the Magic are currently at and with Suggs returning next season. Next, we've got another Vucevic trade, this time Vooch going to the Lakers, while the Lakers send the Bulls Jared Vanderbilt, Maxi Kleber, and a first-round pick in 2026. Yeah, this one is borderline on the unrealistic spectrum. Like, if I'm saying, yes, sign me up for this trade instantly for the Bulls, then it's probably not really viable. Like, forget Vanderbilt and Kleber for a moment. If you can get a first-round pick for Vucevic, especially if it's not a pick 5 to 7 years out in the future that you can actually work with your current youth movement, yeah, you take that all day. Unfortunately, the Bulls aren't going to be able to get a first-round pick for Vucevic. It's just not happening, not at his age and on an expiring contract. That said, I could see the Lakers getting a little desperate and overpaying in the form of a trade for a big man after that disaster of a first-round playoff series against the Timberwolves. I like Vanderbilt too, by the way. Not really high on Kleber, and that would really just be more for salary filler purposes anyway, but Vanderbilt could be a nice addition, especially when the Bulls should always be looking for more size. And then this next one, sorry, it's a little bit blurry. The person who did the screenshot submitted it like this. So of course we got to do a Zion trade. It wouldn't be complete without one, but in this instance, the Bulls are sending the Pelicans Vucevic, Patrick Williams, and 2 first-round picks. Really, this is kind of 1 first-round pick, as one of them is the dreaded Portland pick that won't ever convey and wait until it's going to be a second rounder in 2028. And then the Bulls own 2027 pick, which is top 10 protected. Oh, and the Bulls would also actually get a second-round pick in the deal. Honestly, I would do this. It's a risk, but I would take that risk for Zion Williamson for this type of package deal because Vucevic, he's likely on the move anyway. Patrick Williams, nothing is going to happen there, and you're also getting out of his contract, which he still has 4 years left on his deal. You're exchanging 2 second-round picks because, again, I think the Bulls pick, that Portland pick, will eventually convey to a second-round pick. So the biggest thing you're really giving up is a top 10 protected pick. Like, if it was unprotected, I would say, yeah, it's probably a bit too much, but a top 10 protected pick for Zion Williamson, even at his contract, is worth it because Zion, if Zion could stay healthy, he's a star. He's still young, already an established player, and giving up just 1 protected first-round pick is a risk worth taking, in my opinion. Then we've got this one, Kobe White, Io, Vooch, and 2 first-rounders for Ja Morant. Yeah, no, I mean, I mentioned in my last video, I'm not down to take on Ja Morant with his contract, his off-court baggage, his injury history, and I'm not on board if it means giving up multiple firsts. And in this scenario, not only are you giving up multiple first-round picks, but you're giving up Kobe White as well. It's just too much for Ja Morant, to be honest. I don't even think the Bulls would do it either. Like, yes, I'm sure AK would salivate at a big fancy name like Ja Morant, a young but experienced star, which we know he wants, but he's going to be more conservative when it comes to bringing in injury-prone guards on long contracts. Then we've got this one that also involves Kobe, so Kobe White for Jabari Smith Jr., Cam Whitmore, and the Suns' 2027 first-round pick. My first reaction to this was, well, that's too much. The Rockets would never give up all of that for Kobe White. But then I thought about it more and I was like, well, that team does need shooting. They need more shot creators. They need more guys to help space the floor. And generally speaking, they need better offense. Not saying their offense is bad, but it's average. They were 13th in the league on offense this past season, in the bottom 10 in the league in three-point shooting. Adding someone like Coby White, even if he's just used as an off-ball scorer, could be a game changer for them and really taking that team to the next level to be able to compete for a championship. That said, I do still think it's a lot for the Rockets to be willing to give up. You're talking about two young players with upside that are pieces in their rotation, but then also that 2027 pick from the Suns, that's unprotected. And that pick could be really juicy by the time 2027 rolls around with the way things are going for the Suns and the fact that it's very possible they could blow things up by then and sell off everything. There's no doubt in my mind they're going to trade Kevin Durant this summer, so what does that mean for the rest of the roster? So my point in all of this is that, that's probably going to be a very valuable pick, and the Rockets aren't just going to let it go for nothing. This next one is interesting, and I've seen some similar trades floating around on Twitter about this, but in this one, you have the Bulls trading Coby White and that Portland pick, while the Bulls receive Anthony Black, the Magic's 16th pick in this year's draft, and 2 seconds. This, in my view, is actually a pretty balanced trade in terms of what both sides would be getting. I mean, for the Magic, like the Rockets, but even more so than the Rockets, they are in desperate need of a shot creator and floor spacer. They were one of the worst offensive teams in the league this past season. They were the worst three-point shooting team in the league, even though I had Magic fans trying to tell me that Franz Wagner would suddenly turn into a sharpshooter. If there was any team in the league that needed a player like Coby White, it's the Orlando Magic. Now, do I think they would be willing to give up one of their younger prospects, a former number 6 overall pick in Anthony Black, and their first-round pick in this year's draft? Probably not, especially when they know they're going to have to pay Coby, and they may not be able to afford him given all the contractual commitments they have that I already mentioned earlier in this video. But it's not completely dismissible, and I think it's fair to say that Coby White is worth a first-round pick and a young player at this point, especially when we know this isn't an unprotected pick that could turn out to be a top 5. It's a protected pick, not even just a protected pick. We already know it's going to be the 16th pick. I think the question for the Magic is, you have this heavily touted recruit coming out of high school. He's 21 years old. Do you see him blossoming with this current core that you have in place right now? And if there really isn't going to be a solid role for him, then maybe you try and get a more established player like Coby. Now, would I do this trade, like from the Bulls' perspective? Yeah, I probably would, because you're getting a pretty good haul for a player like Coby, a fair amount of draft capital in the form of a first-round pick and 2 seconds that can really help kickstart this rebuild. But it's tough because Coby has just been so good. He's played so well these last 2 seasons and was really flourishing at the end of this season with no more Zach LaVine. But yeah, I would probably still take this offer before you risk Coby's value depreciating as he gets closer and closer to free agency. Anyway, I will leave it there for now, guys. Keep the fake trades coming. I love looking at these. Let me know what you guys thought of some of these trades. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.